lined up for you folks. The oddest of oddities. I don't know. Okay, so he's in London, and apparently they don't have much color over there, so I'm trying to get the color corrected, I guess. I think there's the closest. But so Pierre is in London, United Kingdom, not London, Ontario, London, UK, which is surprising as hell. He does a speech, and on Thursday, Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his trip, his India, Australia, Japan trip. He's in the Australia part of his India, Australia, Japan trip. He's there for a few days. Today was about defense. They were discussing defense things. And I don't know what his press conference just came out like a couple of minutes ago. Pierre was an hour ago-ish, so breaking news. You won't get this anywhere else, that's for certain. And then Thursday, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is going to speak in the Senate. Well, actually, he's going to speak in the Commons. I just saw today. I did a stream. And he's going to speak in the Commons, and the Senate is invited. So there's that. It's a wonderful speaking to. The last time we've had anyone speak in their parliament was like 20 years ago. I believe it was Harper, actually, was the last person to speak in their parliament. It was Canadian of nature. So there's that. It's Pierre. We're going to see what Tony's striking here. It has to do with trade. He's talking about trade and getting things going. I think it's a good idea. This is a very rare occasion. No opposition leader has really left the country. So this is I don't know what this is. This is trying something new, and I'm always good for that. Hopefully it's not like, Carney's an idiot, don't listen to a word he says. You know, one of those things. That's never good. That won't help us on trade deals. It's okay to do that in Canada in question period, but, to go to London and do that, I don't think he will. I think Pierre's more. I think this is honestly a get the training wheels on Pierre thing. Pierre's the Prime Minister in waiting, and I bet you Mark Carney's trying to, just go, go somewhere outside of Canada a little bit, I don't know. Let's listen to Pierre Poilievre.
What to do for themselves, they make themselves and all of us better off. What is good for the parts are even better for the sum. Free exchange is the key to the well-being of commoner and country. As he said, commerce ought naturally to be among nations, as among individuals, a bond of friendship.
You calling me a commoner?
His books were long, but his principles simple. Free trade, free markets, free nations. And that is the theme of this speech. Canada must become stronger at home so that we have unbreakable leverage abroad. Opening trade with like-minded free nations will do that by diversifying markets, lowering costs for consumers, and boosting wages for workers. Smith is probably the best known and least read economist. For that reason, he's often misunderstood. If you Google father of capitalism, his name and face will pop up. Yet the word capitalism or capitalist does not appear in either The Wealth of Nations or in the Theory of Moral Settlements. He never used the term. He did not preach the supremacy of capital over labor, but the free and voluntary exchange of the two. Indeed, he believed that labor was the core of all value. And, quote, the annual labor of every nation is the true source of wealth. And he warned against profits earned through state protection rather than open competition. Nor did he glorify greed. When he wrote that we expect our dinner not from the benevolence of the butcher, brewer, or baker, but from their own self-interest, he was not glorifying greed, but rather describing obvious incentives. In the theory of moral sentiments, in fact, he reminds us that human beings are bound together by something he called sympathy, by placing ourselves in the other person's situation and seeing through their eyes. Thus, ours becomes their interest. Indeed, if sympathy means caring truly and actively about the other fellow's wants and needs, then no one is more sympathetic than the entrepreneurial businessman who gets ahead by supplying the needs and wants of others. Others who must choose voluntarily to transact with him because what they get from him is worth more than what it costs. And that is the nature of free enterprise business. If you want to sell what the consumer buys, you have to see through the consumer's eyes. Smith did not invent the free market economy. He discovered it just at the moment in history when these economies were embracing it over serfdom. So we can compare the before and after to see which approach worked. Before 1776, there was literally no economic growth. Estimates by Angus Madison show that between the year 1 and the year 1700, per capita GDP measured in 1990 dollars grew from about $444 to $615 in 1700 years, meaning barely any growth in living standards in those 17 centuries. From 1820 to 2000, per capita GDP went from $667 to $5,700. Now let me put this into context. On average, in the free market period, the economy would grow as much in 1 year as it would have grown in the average 200 years in the pre-free market period. Life expectancy literally doubled from the year 1800 to 75 from 35. And then there's transportation. Winston Churchill famously noted that Sir Robert Peel in 1841 took just as long to go from London to Rome as a Roman Empire would have taken to go from Rome to London 2,000 years or earlier. In other words, there was literally no improvement in transportation technology in that 2 millennia.
Really?
Then, in a little more than a century, we went from horses and sailboats to jet engines and men on the moon. More advancement in a century and a half of free enterprise than in the prior 2,000 years combined. For generations, free markets lowered costs, raised wages, and lifted billions out of poverty. Yet, they're facing major pushback today from the twin threats of socialism and protectionism. That risks turning the wealth of nations into the poverty of the people. How did this happen? The answer, if we're being honest, is that there is a backlash because working people across the Western world have been thoroughly betrayed. Wages lag, housing is out of reach, energy costs soar, opportunities blocked, and the silent thief of inflation has robbed buying power. The state took from the hardworking many to enrich the privileged few. It's not that the government left working people behind, rather, it priced them out and shut them out altogether. Net zero policies drove energy and food costs up and paychecks down, all to fill the pockets of green grifters. Protected monopolies shielded from competition keep prices high. Corporate welfare enriched insiders at taxpayers' expense. Gatekeepers blocked home building, resource development, and infrastructure, shutting workers from jobs and youth from homes. Licensing bureaucracies stopped immigrants from working in their professions, including in our hospitals, while mass migration drove wages down and rental costs up and social services into the ground. And worst of all, inflationary money printing robbed savings and paychecks from working people while ballooning the assets of connected insiders. That is the inflation tax, the most unjust and immoral tax of all. It takes from those with the least without even a vote in Parliament. The inflation tax is when governments spend what it does not have on what people do not want and then prints money to pay for it, inflating prices. One of the worst, though not the first, was your very own Henry VIII. He used to have his minters melt down British coins and refill the inside with copper while extracting the silver and using it to make yet more coins. He put his face on the front of these very same coins, and when they would rub around inside people's pant pockets, the silver would rub off and his red nose would be exposed. Thus came the nickname Old Copper Nose. And Englishmen would know that their king had robbed them of the purchasing power of their money and of their silver every time they would look at his face with that red nose. And if anyone wonders whether or not this caused inflation, here's a very simple mathematical reality. Silver content dropped by 75%, and prices rose by 77% during the great debasement of Henry and Edward. Today's debasement has the same effect. An enormous gap between rich and poor has coincided with radical money printing in the Western world. Home ownership, you wonder why young people can't afford homes. Well, it's because the cost has been inflated. The number of dollars in circulation has been growing at 6 times the rate of the number of homes in the market in the United States, Canada, and the UK over the last decade. To be clear, housing costs less today than it did 55 years ago, if your money is gold. In fact, it's gone down by about half, if your money is gold. But if your money is dollars or pounds, it has more than quadrupled in that same time period. So it is not that housing costs are rising, it is that the purchasing power of money is falling. Meanwhile, billionaires leverage newly printed money, which, just like the aristocrats of Henry VIII's time, they touch before it loses its value, to balloon their assets. To be clear, fortunes earned through industry and entrepreneurship should be rewarded and celebrated. But having wealth inflated by government is not the same thing at all. We want people to get rich by making, not taking. Smith warned that when corporate and political power merge, the public loses. When corporations get ahead by having the best lobbyist, not the best product. When those with money turn it into governmental power and then turn that power back into more of other people's money, then the people pay the price. This form of trickle-down economics takes from entrepreneurs, workers, and savers to give to government, which then funnels it through bureaucracy, interest groups, lobbyists, with only drops trickling down to the people at the bottom of the pyramid who paid for it all in the first place. Ironically, those who seek to aggrandize the state tell us that this is all to redistribute wealth, like Robin Hood. Now, the theory was that if the government decided who got what, it would make sure everyone got their fair share, that altruistic authorities would abolish greed altogether. Because while humans operating the marketplace apparently are greedy, but in positions of government power, they are transformed into new and perfected creatures caring only about the well-being of others. But if greed can exist in the market, surely it can thrive in the halls of government power. As Macaulay reminded us, human nature travels everywhere man goes. Wherever you shed the honey, the buzzing flies will crowd. Wherever you fling the carrion, the raven's croak is loud. Wherever down Tiber garbage floats, the greedy pike you see, and wheresoever such lord is found, such client still will be. If man is greedy, he will find a way to get rich by taking what government forces others to pay, just as flies take honey without making any. Whereas in the free market, the greedy man must sell things people choose to buy, much like the bee thrives by exchanging pollen for nectar to make honey and multiply flowers. We conservatives must be champions of the honeybees, or the strivers, as the great Lady Thatcher described them, the strivers whom she knew so well because her father was one of them, the daughter of a grocer, always carrying with her his memory in her heart, no matter where she went. From Stephen Harper and John A. Macdonald in Canada, from Thatcher and Churchill here, conservatives have always known that the greatness of the nation lies in its working people. We will champion them by again restoring meritocratic, bottom-up competitive economy, an economy where businesses compete through paying more wages to attract workers and lowering prices to attract customers, where business is disciplined by competition, not propped up by handouts, carve-outs, and bailouts. Economies that are stronger at home so that they can have unbreakable leverage abroad. Some of that leverage will be for Canada to have a deeper trade with many of our allies, especially the mother country. Otherwise put, we need free trade with other free nations. In 1994, Margaret Thatcher, the great Iron Lady, said, "Trade is the oldest form of exchange known to man. From ancient times, it was the most natural form of daily cooperation between peoples, whether it be in the smallest village or the bustling markets of Athens, Babylon, or Rome. The marketplace is not the invention of some academic economist. It is the daily habit of the people." And what is true in Babylon was true in 1994 when she said it, and remains true today. Now more than ever, Canada must begin to trade deeper ties with places like the United Kingdom. And one way is through free trade with old friends, strengthening the bonds that we have between us. For generations, Canadians and Brits traded, invested, and fought on the same side of wars. The United Kingdom has long been one of Canada's leading investment partners, and much is happening in the world today that needs to bind us together. With the authoritarian theocracy in Iran crippled and the Ayatollah dead in that country, we need to join with other free nations. We also need to hope that the Iranians will join the Council of Nations. We support Iranian people's ambition to have a free and democratic country, and we must secure our own borders and our homeland to keep ourselves safe in this dangerous world. We must also draw from the inspiration of the great Iron Lady, who is part of the Western Alliance of Free Nations, helped topple the Soviet Union and win the Cold War. We must strengthen that transatlantic alliance, and we must learn from her conviction and her courage. The same determination that reinforced us then must do so now. And today, I'm here to share an idea on how we can do that. It's to build on the guarantee of security and freedom by bringing together the long-standing ties that united us in the past. Supply chains right now that we took for granted are being interrupted. And when democratic alliances fragment, others fill the vacuum. If trusted allies do not tighten their economic and security ties, less trusted powers will shape the world, control supply chains, and set terms. That is not a future that serves our people. In such a world, warm words about old alliances are not enough. When the treaties and agreements that allow us to trade freely face upheaval, we need to double down and deepen our ties with our oldest and most trusted friends. Instead of shrinking markets behind tariffs, we should expand opportunities among friends. That is why I believe the time has come for a partnership between Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, and New Zealand, a modern CANZUK, a pact that opens our economies, removes barriers, recognizes credentials, expands skilled labor mobility, and deepens capital markets. Cooperation that helps us build stronger militaries and keep our countries safe from shared threats like China, Russia, and others. Our four countries have the free trade agreement and arrangement that is already in place through the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But we must go further, because tariffs are not the only or even the biggest barrier to our trade. More often, trade is slowed by regulations, standards, product approvals, licensing, and rules of procurement, etc. For example, Canadian beef is not able to make it into as many marketplaces of this country as it should because of regulatory obstacles. We must remove these types of obstacles so all of you can enjoy the heavenly splendor of beef from rural Alberta, if I do say so myself. We will work to remove such barriers to bring you these joys, preventing and ensure that entrepreneurs on your side of the pond have access to our markets as well. We will remove needless complexity because trust is already strong. So what would it mean in practice? One, we would have automatic professional recognition so that a doctor here could be a doctor there. If you're capable of doing a heart surgery in London, England, surely you can do one in London, Ontario. We'd ensure that we strengthen our healthcare systems across both sides of this great ocean, and that we share the knowledge between our two countries. Next, product alignment. If something is legal in Sydney, Australia, surely it should be legal in Sydney, Nova Scotia, whether it's a car part or a medicine. That's why we need regulatory presumption of equivalence, so product approval is done in one country will be recognized in all other countries. Furthermore, we must allow mobility of skilled workers so that our youth can travel and work between these different countries, filling shortages, boosting economic growth at home and abroad. Fourth, defense procurement. We need to team up to ensure maximum contribution to deliver military equipment and weaponry at the lowest cost for taxpayers. Fifth, a critical minerals and energy compact. Canada has among the greatest supply of these incredible resources that we could put to use for freedom. We want to fuel the freedom of our allies by building up a strategic energy and mineral reserve that could be available in the event of war to those countries that have agreed to provide tariff-free access to Canadians. Under my leadership, Canada will create this wonderful reserve, this guarantor of our freedom. We have 10 of the 12 NATO defense critical minerals, and we want them to be available on the side of freedom in the event they are needed. There's also the opportunity for nuclear cooperation. We are the largest supplier of uranium anywhere on Earth. We invented the CANZUK, and we have much to learn from you on nuclear fusion. We should also strike an LNG supply deal, so all of your natural gas comes from Canada, not from Qatar, not from Russia, and not from any other unstable or hostile supplier. You need to have Canadian energy fueling your freedom here in this country. And so, le libre-échange est important parmi les alliés. C'est le meilleur moyen pour rendre la vie abordable et pour nous rendre maîtres chez nous, de travailler ensemble pour partager ce que nous avons ensemble, ce que nous voulons ensemble. C'est pour ça que je propose un partenariat stratégique in our efforts to ensure that our people have freedom here and abroad. We need to protect our borders, ensure that we have solid immigration, which I don't believe should be part of the first steps of CANZUK. And we need to ensure that we build upon the strengths of our countries, including in Canada, bilingualism, by protecting the French language in the context of this wonderful agreement. We, our country, share legal roots, parliamentary government, and a sovereign who stands above politics, a living symbol of our constitutional continuity. CANZUK will be stronger than the sum of its parts. Together, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom will each be stronger at home with unbreakable leverage abroad. Conservatives around the world must not only unite in this way, but also to ensure that we open up opportunities for working-class people in all of our countries. In the last election, Conservatives were able to do that, adding 2.5 million additional votes, many of them in working-class communities. 46% of self-described blue-collar workers choose the Conservative Party of Canada, by far a record. We won in unionized logging, manufacturing, and mining towns that had never voted for us before. We won the youth vote. In fact, even in election Canada's high school mock vote, we came far ahead of any of the competitors. If only they could have counted in the main ballot boxes. We need to build on that by offering a message of homes, jobs, and hope to our youth. We must be the party of balanced budgets and sound money to preserve and even strengthen the buying power of our people. We must lower taxes on work, investment, home building, and energy. We must unblock the production of all forms of energy, including oil and gas. We must remove all governmental barriers to home building so every youngster can own a home and pay off a mortgage. We must ensure jobs go to our people, not to low-wage temporary foreign workers. Canada and the United Kingdom share language, culture, parliamentary government, and most important of all, folklore, including the possibly fictional legend of Robin Hood. And by the way, I don't mean the medieval Marxists of 20th century retellings. Robin fought, as do we, for ancient liberties of the common people, to hunt, harvest, and keep what was theirs. His legend actually emerged in the times of the peasant revolts, seeking economic freedom by fighting against laws that banned workers from traveling for work or accepting higher wages. A legendary tax fighter, his nemesis, the Sheriff of Nottingham, was a tax collector. As Winston Churchill wrote, Robin Hood is the spirit of the greenwood, the protest of the common man against the forest laws. the dream of the dispossessed. He is the hero of the yeomanry, as King Arthur is the hero of the knighthood. Whether he lived or not, he represents the reality in the hearts of the people, and the fame and his fame has outlived that of many a statesman. He personifies the English love of freedom and the popular instinct for justice, especially when it is denied by those in power. Though born an aristocrat, the great Winston Churchill knew the value of hard work and the great men and women who did it. He proudly joined the Bricklayers Union. He did this because while he had written 58 volumes of Nobel Prize-winning literature, he still respected the genius and the greatness of those who worked with their hands. One of my favorite Churchill stories is from the Blitz. After the worst bombing raids, he would go out and chat and hear the stories of people in the rubble of their former homes. He'd listen and comfort them. His bodyguard, Inspector Thompson, recorded in his diary that one day after a raid, Churchill was helping with the rescue workers near a bombed-out house. He went down on his knees to clutch an elderly woman who, while still conscious, was being dug out. For a moment, they looked each other in the eyes. Winston's coat was splattered with mud, the woman covered from head to toe in dust. Then, with a tremor in her voice, she said thank you and was taken away. Tears streamed down Churchill's face as he watched her. He stood in stone silence before finally saying, "There goes greatness." Churchill knew that the war would not be won by the political classes who fretted and prevaricated, by the bureaucracy, the kings, the queens, or even by prime ministers. It was the common people. Tram drivers and steel workers, tea ladies, barbers who dropped their scissors to pick up a rifle, mill girls who volunteered to serve as air raid wardens, men who rushed to the front line, faced gunfire, and never spoke a word of their bravery when they came home. Women who tilled fields, made munitions, and fought fires in the Blitz. They didn't grumble. They didn't ask for recognition. They did their bit. Conservatives have always known that the greatness of a nation lies in its working people, that there is nobility in work and resilience of those who fight their own battles, get knocked down by life, pick themselves up, and quietly get on with their jobs. And there is wisdom in the common men and women who build things, fix things, move things, and make things. So often we call them the ordinary people, but there is nothing ordinary about them. They are extraordinary. They are not famous. They do not make the evening news. When they die, there are no headlines and no words spoken of them in Parliament. But when they walk through Heaven's Gate, the trumpets sound for them, and the angels murmur, in the words of Churchill, "There goes greatness." Thank you very much.
There goes greatness.
Access to Canadian.
There we go. There goes greatness. That was a great speech in London, UK. So yeah, he did as expected, as is expected by a Canadian traveling. He didn't do a full-throated attack on the government of the day, Liberal, because he's obviously opposition. He said Canadian strengths. He basically spoke about, without specifically saying it, just noted things that conservatives would love, right? You know, mentioned a few books, you know, Common and Pain and you know what I mean, things in his speech that most people can be hurrah. He did attack socialism, and that's as political as he got. He didn't do individual parties, and nowhere near did he go near individual politicians. He didn't go near parties as well, national, international. Didn't even bring up countries specific. Very vague on that stuff. Broad view, trade, Yeah, he did. The speech, he didn't hit any red lines. I don't think he came even close to hitting any of them. And it's not like the speech was dull because of it. There's so much area, especially Canada. Canada, we have a very small population and a huge swath of land. So we have a lot of export of mineral goods, resources of that nature, unrefined goods. We should be doing more refining, but that's something a part of Canada. So export is the biggest part of really Canada. So there's 80% of our conversation should be more is about that. Should be more about that than it is anything else. Geopolitical affairs, you know, are just less to do with Canada. Just, you know, yes, we're nice to do that, but the resource, anyway. And he did a little bit of the resource export industry. He talked about that new trade deal, ANZAC, whatever, CANZUK, New Zealand, Australia, UK trade deal, and CPTPP is another one with like from Chile, Argentina. Actually, I don't know if Argentina's in it, but Australia as well. There, Japan, big player, you know, of it. Indonesia, it's just huge. You Google that one. I think the biggest problem now is we need to have a government desk to help companies sell our crap to all these countries that we got all these free trade deals with. I think that's the biggest problem. We need to get our stuff in higher demand than we have. And that's just a concerted 1001 company effort headed by the government and a government desk, you know, with the spy agencies and everything, whatever, giving whatever, you know, nothing more than mischievous stuff to help us sell our stuff, actually to help us have a higher demand than what we have with every product we sell. That's all there. That's the simplest way to put it. That's what I think is lacking. Canada, you know, we have to hand it to the politicians of today and yesterday. We have the most free trade deals in any country in the world. The world, hand down. You know, there are other nice countries besides us. So it shows, and we've kept a lot of our you know, good things. So we really are standing on an excellent position, and we need to go to the next level and create an export desk, the export desk. Have it as a huge file, basically the huge resource for companies, and methods and actions to help our stuff, as again, have a higher demand than what we produce. More demand than production, just like they want more demand for work than labor. That's every market's dream. It's the best problem to have. It is a problem. It's the best problem to have. The conservatives, then people are more open with other forms of expansion. But when you're having tough labor market, it's pretty hard to sell anything to do with that. The food as well. It just to me, it makes sense. We're such a small market at 40 million. All of our food market, it would make sense to help the industries, all companies in Canada export their product at a price point. And then the stuff they sell in Canada, you know, labeled in Canada only at a different rate, at a very low rate, right? Because the assistance they get, and they make, say, if they make 98% of their money exporting their hot peppers to India, right? Because, right? Which we can do these things. With our automation, we can beat With automated greenhouse and automation and new modern technology, it's the next thing coming forward. And anyway, this could work, selling out these other products to other countries. Anyway, next up, I digress. I'm pontificating on I don't know nothing. Okay, we have the next up. Mark Carney is in Sydney, and he's doing
Amazing. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde.
There he is.
Look forward to taking your questions in a moment, but just in advance, I'd like to address 3 points in particular. First, the evolving situation in the Middle East. Secondly, I'll touch briefly on our meetings in India.
This
and
is
then
moments
finally,
ago.
The work ahead here over
Just
the next
moments
48
ago.
hours in Australia. And I would
This
like
is
to
Pierre. This
maybe
is the Prime
observe
Minister.
right at the start already thank
If we can take that off.
Prime Minister Albanese and the Australian people for the warm welcome and affording us so much time for our important discussions. Okay, to turn to the situation in the Middle East, and I'll begin in French. Le Canada considère depuis longtemps l'Iran comme la source principale d'instabilité et de terreur au Moyen-Orient. Le régime et ses mandataires ont assassiné plusieurs de civils canadiens et causé d'immenses souffrances à des millions de personnes au Moyen-Orient et ailleurs. Après plus de 20 ans de négociations et d'efforts diplomatiques, l'Iran n'a toujours pas démantelé son programme nucléaire ni mis fin à ses activités d'enrichissement. Le Canada soutient depuis longtemps la nécessité impérative de neutraliser cette grave menace pour le monde. Le Canada est solidaire de la population iranienne dans sa longue et courageuse lutte contre ce régime oppressif. C'est pourquoi nous appuyons les efforts visant à empêcher l'Iran de se doter de l'arme nucléaire et à empêcher son régime de continuer à menacer la paix et la sécurité internationale. Parce que le Canada s'engage activement dans le monde tel qu'il est, sans attendre passivement l'avènement d'un monde tel que nous le souhaitons. Nous adoptons cette position contre cœur, parce que le conflit actuel est un autre exemple à l'échec de l'ordre international. Malgré des décennies de résolutions du Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies, le travail infatigable de l'Agence internationale de l'énergie atomique et une succession de sanctions et de résolutions diplomatiques, la menace nucléaire iranienne demeure. Et maintenant, les États-Unis et Israël ont agi sans impliquer les Nations Unies ni consulter leurs alliés, y compris le Canada. Dans les circonstances, où en sommes-nous maintenant? Face à un conflit qui s'attend rapidement et à des menaces qui s'aggravent pour la vie des civils. Le Canada réaffirme que tous les belligérants sont liés par le droit international. Nous condamnons les frappes menées par l'Iran contre des civils et des infrastructures civiles à travers le Moyen-Orient. Nous implorons toutes les parties, y compris les États-Unis et Israël, de respecter les règles de l'engagement international. Le Canada appelle à une désescalade rapide des hostilités et prêt à contribuer à la réalisation de cet objectif. La résolution de cette crise nécessite un engagement en faveur d'une solution politique globale. Le dialogue diplomatique est essentiel pour éviter que le conflit s'étende et s'aggrave. Les civils innocents doivent être protégés et toutes les parties doivent s'engager à trouver des accords durables pour mettre fin à la prolifération nucléaire et à l'extrémisme terroriste. Le Canada continuera de privilégier cette approche avec les pays qui partagent ses vues et les parties au conflit. Canada has long seen Iran as the principal source of instability and terror in the Middle East. The regime and its proxies have murdered hundreds, including Canadian civilians, and caused untold suffering for millions of people in the Middle East and beyond. Despite more than 2 decades of negotiations and diplomatic efforts, Iran has not dismantled its nuclear program nor halted its enrichment activities. Canada has long supported the imperative of neutralizing this grave global threat. Canada stands with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against the regime's oppressive rule, which is why we support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. Because Canada is taking the world as it is, not passively waiting for a world we wish to be. We do, however, take this position with regret because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order. Despite decades of UN Security Council resolutions, the tireless work of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the succession of sanctions and diplomatic frameworks, Iran's nuclear threat remains. And now, the United States and Israel have acted without engaging the United Nations or consulting allies, including Canada. So where to from here? With a rapidly spreading conflict and growing threats to civilian life. Canada reaffirms that international law binds all belligerents. We condemn the strikes carried out by Iran on civilians and civilian infrastructure across the Middle East. And we implore all parties, including the United States and Israel, to respect the rules of international engagement. Canada calls for a rapid de-escalation of hostilities and is prepared to assist in achieving this goal. Resolution of this crisis will require commitment to a broader political solution. And diplomatic engagement is essential to avoid a wider and deeper conflict. Innocent civilians must be protected, and all parties must commit to finding enduring agreements to end both nuclear proliferation and terrorist extremism. Canada will pursue this approach with like-minded countries and participants in the conflict. And now briefly, allow me to return to our work in this region. J'arrive ici de Mumbai et de New Delhi, où j'ai rencontré le Premier Ministre Modi. Ensemble, we're working fast and already seeing strong results. In India, we secured over $5 billion in commercial agreements that will deepen cooperation between Canadian and Indian businesses, attract investment into our communities, and help double two-way trade to over 70
I could stop this speech on a moment's notice if the Prime Minister would walk in here now and just commit to me to make 2 commitments come true. 1, that he will balance the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates, and 2, that he will cancel. They've been sucking up the big tick for the last 8 years. What they want to do is shut down debate. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want the freedom to express themselves without government control.
Ask the honourable member to put his prop down, please.
Well, it's what we've been asking for months now. Trudeau should have called this half a year ago, but he's been covering up the help.
By 2030. The government of India and Cameco's $2.6 billion uranium supply agreement will support India's civil nuclear energy program and our shared commitment to clean, reliable baseload power. We also launched Canada-Indian talent and innovation strategy backed by 13 educational partnerships between our leading universities. During my visit, in addition to ministerial and official level meetings, there has been more engagement between the Canadian and the Indian governments over the course of less than the past year than in total over the past 2 decades. This is a reflection of the world we face today and the ambitions of both our nations to build and diversify. Alors que nous réunons avec les grandes puissances mondiales, nous resserrons nos liens avec nos partenaires les plus proches. C'est cette mission qui nous amène en Australie pour la première visite bilatérale du Premier ministre canadien dans ce pays depuis près de 20 ans. Pour marquer ce moment important dans les relations entre le Canada et l'Australie, j'ai eu l'honneur d'accepter une invitation à prononcer une allocution demain au Parlement à Canberra. In the coming 2 days, we will focus on forging new partnerships in investment, defense, security, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence. Australia is a natural partner for Canada in these areas and many, many more, areas that will deliver enormous benefits to both our peoples. I very much look forward to today's meetings with business, to meeting with Prime Minister Albanese and his cabinet tomorrow in Canberra. And now I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now begin the question. Première question, Mac.
Mackenzie Gray, Global News. Prime Minister, are you confident that the Indian government is no longer involved in extortions, threats, and violence in Canada?
Well, the first thing to say is that our approach to foreign interference, to transnational repression, to extortion, the crime of extortion, in all cases, is one of vigilance and engagement. Vigilance in terms of tightening the legal framework in Canada. I won't go into all the details. I think you're familiar with the 6 laws that are still before Parliament and the Senate, which will make a major difference to the powers of sentencing, the bail regime, and tightening our asylum system, tightening our borders, all of which will help address these issues. First point. The second element of vigilance, of course, is adequate resources for law enforcement, 1,000 more RCMP, 1,000 more border service agents, coordination at multiple levels of government, reinforcing resources for our security, our various security agencies as well. The third element of vigilance is deploying actively our intelligence services and the highest levels of government being informed on a regular basis in terms of developments. We're in the process structurally of appointing the Foreign Interference Commissioner. We proposed an individual who was the former electoral officer of British Columbia. We're consulting with the opposition parties to move forward on that. So all of those are structural. Then it comes to a question of engagement. And engagement, to engage, you have to be able to talk to countries where there have been issues, and to raise issues, including at the highest levels, to ensure that the cooperation is there, whether it's extortion or some other form of cross-border criminal activity or security risks. That is what we have done. From the moment that we reestablished a dialogue at the leader level with India, almost immediately we had meetings with our national security advisors. They've been followed up on multiple occasions. We've reestablished national security cooperation. We've reestablished defense. We're reestablishing defense cooperation and sharing of information. In the meetings of ministers, including the foreign minister, these issues have been raised. There have been frank discussions, and including in my meetings with Prime Minister Modi, including in Delhi 2 days ago. Thank you.
En français, est-ce que l'Inde constitue toujours une menace?
C'est une question plus générale. L'approche du gouvernement du Canada, c'est de mettre en œuvre la vigilance et l'engagement. En ce qui concerne la vigilance, c'est une question des projets de loi, le resserrement des projets de loi en ce qui concerne la liberté sous caution, le sentencing pour les crimes graves, de renforcer le GRC, de renforcer nos agences frontalières. Et on l'a fait. On a déjà fait tout cela. Et en ce qui concerne, mais c'est nécessaire, c'est pas suffisant, pardon. C'est nécessaire en même temps d'avoir engagement avec les gouvernements à l'échelle de les conseillers de sécurité nationale. Ça existe depuis le recommencement des relations entre l'Inde et le Canada, par exemple. Il y a plusieurs réunions entre les conseillers de sécurité nationale, d'avoir la coopération à l'échelle de la défense, de la police, et puis d'avoir des conversations ouvertes et franches à l'échelle du ministre des Affaires étrangères et à l'échelle des premiers ministres. Et j'ai eu une conversation avec le premier ministre Modi à Delhi sur tout cela à Delhi il y a deux jours.
Prochaine question.
Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada. Est-ce que votre gouvernement a un plan pour rapatrier les 85 000 ressortissants canadiens coincés au Moyen-Orient?
Nous avons un plan pour le moment. En même temps, c'est une question d'engagement. Nous avons l'engagement avec les gouvernements au Moyen-Orient, au Golfe, y compris les conversations de moi-même avec mes homologues. Premier point. Deuxièmement, c'est une question, pour le moment, c'est une question de la sécurité. La situation reste la situation demeure trop dangereuse d'avoir une repatriation à grande échelle de région. Mais on travaille avec les gouvernements, on travaille avec les compagnies aériennes, mais à haut niveau. Ce qui est important, c'est une désescalation de la situation actuelle dans la guerre. Merci.
Next question, Steve Chase.
Steve Chase with the Globe and Mail. I want to ask you about Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Are you concerned about the report in the Globe and Mail this week that showed the Canadian authorities gathered evidence showing that Indian officials in their Vancouver consulate were assisting by providing information that helped with the assassination of Mr. Nijjar? And I want to ask you about your predecessor said there was credible allegations of a link between the Indian government and Canada. Do you agree with that assessment? And finally, what are you doing?
Sorry, could you, the full quotation that you're using, I think you cut it off.
Your predecessor said in the House of Commons that there were credible allegations of a link between the government of Canada, government of India, and the death of Mr. Nijjar. Do you agree with that assessment? And finally, what is the government doing to hold India accountable for the death of Mr. Nijjar?
So all of those questions fall under, all those questions fall under the same rubric, which is there is a process underway this is a criminal procedure. There's a process underway. And my job at this point, with respect to that process, is to make sure that I do not say anything that prejudices the prospect of justice being served. So in that context, I can't comment on the specific aspect, those three aspects of your question. And I hope you'll appreciate that what is important here is that justice is served and that the immense resources that are put in place in order to ensure that justice is served run their course.
Thanks. Next question.
Morning, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor, National Post. You have outlined what steps Canada is doing to protect citizens from foreign interference and in transnational repression, but a lot of confusion exists, including within your own cabinet, about what Canada thinks India is doing. So I'm hoping that you can clarify in a yes or no way. Do you agree with your own government official, yes or no, who suggested India is no longer actively interfering in Canada's democratic process and that Indian agents are no longer involved in murders and extortions within Canada? Yes or no?
Well, I'm not sure that's an exact quote.
That is what he suggested.
That's not a quote.
I can read the quote.
I think, we can debate whether you had a discussion that was not for quotation, but if you want to read a quote from something that's not for quotation. These are the words I would use, and it's important. I would not use those words, okay, first point. Secondly, our approach, as I said in response to the first question, is one of, the second question, is one of vigilance and engagement. And we have made progress, but regardless of the progress that has been made, it is our responsibility to have both aspects. First and foremost, to be vigilant. Okay, vigilant in terms of tightening the laws, vigilant ensuring that we have the right resources at the security level, at the police level, in terms of the coordination, vigilant in ensuring that those resources are active, vigilant in ensuring that we are using all sources of intelligence to direct resources to protect Canadians. And then alongside that, to be engaged with countries so that if and when there are issues or even a sense of issues that we are raising them, engagement at the level of national security, engagement at the level of defense, engagement at the level of police, engagement at the political level. All of those, and if you look at the record, if I may just finish on this, of this government in less than a year, 6 major crime bills, many of which address specifically these issues, thousands of new resources being put in the RCMP and border security, huge technical resources also being put in place. That's an odd way to put it, but physical resources in terms of surveillance, and re-engagement, including at the national security level and the political level, so that we can address these issues actually, in other words, today and prospectively, so that prevention is there as well as redress. Thank you.
Next question. Abigail Beeman, CTV News. I still have not heard a clear answer as to whether you believe India is still actively involved in foreign interference, and if you would not use those words of the government official, will there be consequences for that official?
There will not be consequences for those officials. Look, there are, in terms of vigilance and monitoring, which we do actively and on which I receive regular briefings. There are aspects of those briefings that I can't share in public, and I'm not going to betray them. I will tell you that there is progress on these issues, and that progress is a product, in my judgment, it's a product of the resources we're putting in. It's a product of the clarity of our position. We will not tolerate foreign interference, transnational repression by anyone. And I stress, by anyone. There's a wide range of countries who make these efforts from time to time. And we will call it out and we will engage with it in a way that is as effective as possible to protect Canadians. And that's what we're doing.
Next question.
Thank you.
Alex Ballingall with the Toronto Star. In your Davos speech, you said that one of Canada's principles and the principal aspects of our foreign policy is the prohibition of the use of force that's not consistent with the UN Charter. Now you're saying, albeit regretfully, we've supported this action despite the lack of engagement with the United Nations. So it seems like there's a potential, or it seems like there is a contradiction in those two things. So can you explain how we arrive at that position?
Well, there's a few things, Alex. What I also said in the Davos speech and said today, and this is core, is we take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. We're not going to passively wait for the world as we wish it would be. We would like international law to always and everywhere be respected. Canada's intention, Canada's policy itself is to always and everywhere respect international law. So that's the first point. Secondly, I will observe, and I would take up, and it's not fair to your colleagues, but I would take up all the remaining time in this press conference times 10 if I went through the serial violations of international law by the Islamic Republic of Iran over decades, and all the efforts under the international system to contain those using international frameworks and international laws. It is a failure of the international system that this country repeatedly violated international law, terrorized an entire region, and through extension, the world, including the murder of Canadians. Let's not forget that. Repression of women. The murder of 15,000 of their citizens within the past few weeks for protest. Now, brings us to the question, though, which I think is in your question, of the current situation and its perspective relative to international law. And look, the first thing I'll say with respect to that, it's for the United States and Israel to make the case, and for whether or not that is the case. And it's for others, more expert than me, non-lawyer, certainly non-international lawyer, who are more expert to make that determination. And that said, well, Canada was not asked to participate, you know that. We were not informed in advance. We were not asked to participate. Prima facie, it appears that these actions are inconsistent with international law. So we would not have been in a position earlier this week, or the weekend, I guess, to take a judgment that met our standards if we had been asked to participate. We weren't. We haven't made that formal judgment. It's for others to make those judgments. As I said, Alex, we were dealing with the world as it is. So in the context of what's happened, what's been begun, we support the efforts to end the Iranian nuclear program and its decades-long process, regime's decade-long process of state-sponsored terrorism. But we remind that international law binds. It binds particularly with respect to civilian infrastructure, and it binds all parties, should bind all parties. We call for a de-escalation. We're prepared to assist in that. Thank you.
En français, Monsieur Poilievre.
Quel aspect?
Le droit international, est-ce que le parti israélo-américain contrevient au droit international?
Premièrement, c'est pour les États-Unis et Israël de faire la preuve si leurs actions sont consistantes avec le droit international, premier point. Cela dit, le Canada n'a pas été demandé d'être un participant dans l'action, tout le monde le sait. Mais cela dit, dans la situation actuelle, à ce temps-là, ce n'était pas clair que les actions sont consistantes avec le droit international. Mais il faut agir, il faut reprendre, il faut que le Canada reprend dans la situation actuelle, le monde comme il est. Et dans ce contexte, on soutient les efforts d'arrêter le programme nucléaire d'Iran et la capacité de promulguer le terrorisme à travers le Moyen-Orient et à travers le monde. Merci.
JP, we'll have time for 2 more questions after this one.
JP Tasker, CBC News. Good morning, Prime Minister. How are you?
Good. We'll take 3 just so there's not a rebellion behind
That's
JP.
probably a good idea.
Yeah.
What was President Trump's reaction to you supporting the airstrikes on Iran?
I haven't spoken to the president.
What does that say about your relationship?
President's. I don't think it says anything, to be honest. Next
You
question.
received nothing from the Americans about that?
Look, we take a position. Let me just make a clear point. We took a position, not asking for something. We took a position because we view the nuclear threat and the export of terrorism of Iran over decades as one of the gravest threats to international peace and security. And the Americans and the Israelis haven't taken this action in that limited sense. We supported that aspect. That is not a blank check. That is not us participating. That is not us asking for something in exchange for that. None of that's true. That is just a straight-up position. Thank you.
Next question.
Prime Minister Brian Platt from Bloomberg. What we know so far is the Iran Supreme Leader has been killed. Many other senior officials have been killed. Do you have a position on what replaces that in Iran? What kind of regime comes next? Do you want to see a wholesale regime change here, or is stability more important?
Well, look, we have long wanted for decades and continue to this hour that the will of the Iranian people is respected and that a government consistent with the will of the Iranian people comes in place. How that would come about, that's I don't have, I mean, it's an exceptionally complex situation. I'm not inserting a war aim into conflict that others started.
Catherine.
Hello, Prime Minister. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
I wonder if you can just help us better understand Canada's position about what is happening at this moment. There's been a call for a ceasefire. We heard from your ministers. Is Canada explicitly asking the United States and Israel to stop as well, making those cases to their officials? And also, the United States has made a call for the people of Iran to rise up. What is Canada's position on that?
Well, I'll just refer to my answer to the previous question on the second. And with respect to the first, any cessation of hostilities, whether you call it a ceasefire or cessation of hostilities, full de-escalation, it takes all sides. In order to do that, as I said in my comments, in our judgment, that will take a broader diplomatic effort. That broader diplomatic effort will very much have to involve the countries in the Middle East that have been attacked now by Iran. Their civilian infrastructure, their civilians have been attacked. And certainly that has been, they've been successful largely in defending themselves. Some of the missiles have gotten through, but the intent has been widespread civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure. So those countries, many of whom are close allies of Canada, need to be involved in any diplomatic solution. Thank you.
Ian.
Hi,
Ian Austin from the New York Times. Has Canada seen any evidence of the imminent danger the president cited for launching the attack on the weekend? And should anyone take any confidence in his view that this will be over in a matter of weeks?
Well, Ian, I'm on intelligence. I can't share intelligence that we've received. It's not appropriate, particularly within broader intelligence circles that we may have received from others. So I can't comment on that aspect.
We've got one last question.
And the timing, the president's forecast that this will all be done in a matter of weeks.
I won't speculate on it. What I would say is that, in our view, that the efforts should begin now to de-escalate the situation. And Ian, as I referenced in my previous answer, that needs to involve broader parties than just the United States, Israel, and Iran.
We'll do a last question to Ilya.
Prime Minister, Ilya Grudner, Financial Times. Do you see this war as a war of choice or a war of necessity? In particular, we had the president saying that the nuclear program was obliterated earlier this year. Now you're saying it was an imminent threat. So we're trying to... I
didn't say imminent threat.
Well, is it a threat or it wasn't a threat?
Iran having a nuclear bomb is a massive threat. It would be the biggest threat. This is, again, okay, let's be realistic. This is a regime that is the biggest exporter of terror in the world, that has for decades terrorized the Middle East, that has killed scores of Canadians, murdered scores of Canadians, tens of thousands of its own citizens, repressed women in its society. It has sought persistently, and you'll remember the JCPOA and all other efforts has sought persistently to obtain nuclear weapons. Nobody has a civil nuclear program that's buried a mile beneath the desert. So that is a threat. The exact timing of it, the exact aspect of it, I'm not privy to all the information in terms of that. I would remind Ilya that Canada was not consulted on these hostilities. We're not part of it. We're taking things from the position that they are today. with the actual, and in terms of the desirability of eliminating that nuclear threat and the capacity to export state terror, that we support, but we remind all belligerents of their responsibilities to protect civilians, to protect civilian infrastructure, not target civilian infrastructure, and we call for de-escalation of the conflict.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This puts an end to our press conference.
Thank you very much.
Merci. C'est ce qui met fin à la conférence de presse.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. He took some extra questions, and the people were happy. The journalists were cheering. There you go. Oh, we got him having a nappy. So that's what we had today. Called for calm, I guess, in Iran. Maybe formerly Iran. Maybe it'll be called Persia. I have a feeling they're going to call it Persia soon. It'll be Persia. The old name. So it's the Canadian invasion, whereas India, now Australia, next to Japan, where the opposition leader Pierre, who's this internet sensation, so he'll had some waves in the UK by going there. You know what I mean? They're like, who's this Pierre? Who? And they'll Google him, like, oh, look at the numbers he has. Oh, and it's in Canada. Oh, you know what I mean? He'll have some effect, because for 99% of the people, I would say, won't know him. They won't have a clue who he is, right? The politicians, it'll be higher, but of like a regular folk kind of thing. And then they'll Google and they'll see, oh, wow. Oh, he's a thing. You know what I mean? And it's always fun, a surprise thing when you're like, oh, who's this? And you're like, oh, holy, you know. There's all kinds of videos. There's tons of stuff with this guy. You know, is this another, what's this, that guy? You know. Okay, so that's happening. He did a decent speech. He didn't go and attack the government. He didn't attack the liberals. He didn't attack the left much. He attacked socialism a bit as a whole, you know. There's a broad scope from the, you know, not direct individual, no individual politics. Anyway, and so the same with Carney's doing, I don't know, he's calling for peace in Iran, trade. You know. I like to see the companies, you know, kind of conglomerate, a nice conglomerate of Canadian companies. And as a super entity, you know, individually they're this, all these companies, but together they're the, you know, and you don't call it United Fruit, you know. It's just not, you know. Yeah. So that was a pretty good speech he did. I think it's going well for Canada. Canada's scoring some points on the net, getting some our voice out there, getting some deals. Those Aussies, they naturally are a mining partner. It's so true. Like this Mr. Forrest, he owns large swaths of land in the Ring of Fire, which started in Australia, largest private miner in the world, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but he's big news in the mining industry. You won't have to Google long. And he's right when he says that we're natural partners. Yeah, because Australia has a small population, huge landmass. And their winter is like our summer. I mean, their summer is like our winter. I'm sorry. You don't want to go outside for long. You got to like prepare if you're going out. And their summer is this kind of the same thing. That's what I believe. Now that's my weird theory. You know, like if you don't got AC, It really sucks. In Canada, if you don't got heating, like you can't. In Japan, they don't have heating. It's not common to have heating. It's insane. How could even in summer conditions you would want the heating, but apparently in Japan it's not common to have heating, and so they got all kinds of heating devices and electric pads for every body part. That's a TikTok I saw today. It wasn't a TikTok, but we'll call it TikTok. Let me know in the comment.